All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming down tonight. We are live from Books and Books in Coral Gables, Florida. So a note to our internet audience watching at home, if at any time during the presentation you'd like to purchase a copy of tonight's book, just call the number on your screen. We'll take care of that for you. We will get the book signed, and we will ship it to you wherever you are in the United States free of charge. This evening, Books and Books is very happy to present Ms. Cyndi Lee and her new book, May I Be Happy, a memoir of love, yoga, and changing my mind. This is yet another in a series of events we've presented in collaboration with our friends at Prana Yoga. And here to introduce Ms. Lee, please welcome to the microphone the owner of Prana Yoga, Ms. Donna Pisa.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Thank you so much to Books and Books and to Christina for making this event happen, and thank you all for coming. I just want to take a brief moment to tell you how we're involved with Cyndi and how we know Cyndi. Many years ago, I had a really bad car accident, and I almost lost my leg, had my foot reattached. It was quite serious. And somehow I got into yoga. I took a yoga class, and I liked it, but I couldn't really find anywhere to go. I moved to New York, and I tried a couple of different studios, and nothing really, I didn't like anywhere I went. So one day I was kind of walking down the street, hobbling down the street on 14th Street, and I saw a sign that said Om Yoga. And I went upstairs, and immediately I just felt so at home at Om Yoga. And it felt like such a healing environment, not like, a yoga center that felt like a gym where everyone had to have a great body and, this kind of stuff. So I just absolutely loved it. And the energy that she created there was just absolutely wonderful. So when I moved to Miami to open up Prana Yoga, I always had Om Yoga in my heart and the energy that Cyndi created there. And so thank you so much for that. And here we are 16 years later. And older, which Cyndi reminded me in the car today. She said, "How old are you now?" And I said, 43. She's like, "Wow, you're getting on." So thanks. And we're so happy to have her here. And we have a wonderful weekend ahead with exciting workshops. You can take the whole weekend, or you can jump in any workshop that excites you. And we look forward to seeing you there as well. So thank you so much, Cyndi, and welcome, Cyndi Lee.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you, Books and Books. It's really a huge treat for me to be here. Last year I moved to Virginia, to a little town that doesn't really have a bookstore, so it's really heartwarming to me as a person who loves books, as I'm sure you all do, to come to such a great bookstore. And so I'm honored to be here and thrilled to be back at Prana Yoga. My book is called May I Be Happy, and that was not the original title. The original title of this book was called I Hate My Body. I thought that was a really good title. I got thumbs up in the front row here. I thought this was a good title. This book started out with a whole different life that I had planned for it than how it actually manifested. And it was that I went to India. They sort of write on this book that I had this revelation and then I went to India, but it really happened the other way. I went to India because my guru was leading a pilgrimage, Footsteps of the Buddha pilgrimage, and I've been a student of Buddhism for a long time as well as yoga. And so I wanted to go with my teacher, Galak Rinpoche, to India and have this great experience. And simultaneously, I was also getting really sick of dyeing my hair all the time. I don't know if anybody relates to that. These two things aren't related to each other, but they were related to each other inside me. And I was getting sick of dyeing my hair because it cost so much money and my hair grows so fast that I had to dye it, first like every 6 months and then every 3 months and then like every 3 weeks. And I was getting sick of it. So I thought, I'll go to India and let it grow, because who cares? If you're in India and you have gray hair. This is the New Yorker, right? Thinking this way. So I went to India and we went on this tour of where Buddha was born, where he grew up, and where he gave his first sermon, and all you've been on this tour. And each place we went, my teacher, Galak Rinpoche, who's a Tibetan Lama from Tibet, he's a very precious Lama in many ways, including he's from the last generation of Lamas that were educated in the monasteries in Tibet. And every day he would give us a teaching at one of these sites. And he basically started with Buddhism 101. And Buddhism 101 is suffering. Suffering sounds a little bit intense, new translations of the original Pali are more like discomfort or, dis-ease, square peg in a round hole kind of feeling, or, that feeling where you get up on the wrong side of the bed and there's no milk for your coffee and nothing in your closet fits you, and it's that thing. Maybe that is the first lesson of Buddhism. Sometimes people translate it now as stress. But we start with that. We have stress. So, I'm listening to these talks and kind of not really taking it in, hearing these teachings, and that's very inspiring and very beautiful. And then we're on the bus driving through India, which, it takes like a day to go 30 miles, and it's really bumpy. And I'm kind of, touching my stomach, which is something I always would do, play with my stomach and think about how squishy it was getting, or maybe, I thought maybe it was getting less squishy on this trip, actually, because we weren't drinking, there was no dairy, there was really nothing fattening. And so I was kind of thinking, maybe I can lose weight on this trip to India. And as I'm thinking this, I'm looking out the window, everyone is so thin, and the cows are thin, and the policemen are thin, and everyone is very thin. And I got this light bulb all of a sudden. It's like, wait a minute, this is really crazy. I'm thinking this way on this trip. And I realized in that moment that was my form of suffering. And there's many forms of suffering. There are many ways that we make ourselves unhappy, and they're all equally important or equally worthy of trying to transform. So I recognized this, and I decided that, this feels familiar, and in fact, I know all my friends are like this too. We're always criticizing ourselves, we're criticizing our body, our hair, our skin, and it's not just women. So I thought, I'm gonna write this book about it and interview people, and that'll be great. I'm gonna call it I Hate My Body. And my agent loved it. We wrote the proposal, she sold it to an editor, and then that editor left the job. And I got transferred to a different editor. And she's a yoga fanatic, so she thought it was going to be a yoga book, and then she read the manuscript and was like, something else. And of course, you can't call it I Hate My Body. And I said, what do you mean? It's a perfect title. And she said, no, it's depressing. It's negative. No one would ever want to buy. Who would want to be seen, at the checkout counter buying a book that says I hate my body? And I said, everyone. But that didn't work. I lost that. Then she said, what I teach in yoga class all the time, which is, and they say it in the theater too, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. So she said, this book needs to tell us the fruition, not where you start. So even in Buddhism, we start with suffering, but only so we can recognize what we want to shift. So then I was in a conundrum because I didn't know where it was going to end. I only knew where I was starting. I knew I hated my body, and I thought that was a great title. So I had to start looking around and consulting different people. So I consulted my mother, who has dementia, and between the beginning of the book, where she could kind of talk, and the end of the book, she can't talk anymore, but yet she gave me some wisdom. And I talked with a variety of other people, but mostly it was really my practice, yoga and Buddhist meditation practice, that helped me transform it. And I don't know if you saw the article in the Miami New Times today, but the writer said, well, do you still hate your body? And I said, I'm over it. So I'm over it. The book could be called I'm Over It, but it's called May I Be Happy. And so I'm going to read you a couple of parts of how I got there. I talk about yoga, and I found out that when I'm teaching yoga, I'm really learning. So this is a part about the yoga, a yoga class. My yoga students are sitting on blankets with their legs bent in an extra challenging version of a cross-legged position. Their right ankles are balanced on their left knees, and their left ankles are placed directly below their right knees in a pose called Agni Stambhasana, or stacking fire logs. A few people like this position, but for the most part, they look at me like they just sucked a lemon. Time for me to give them a big picture view. I ask, have you ever disliked someone that you didn't even know? Maybe a person at your office that you've seen from a distance, and for no reason at all, you just don't like them. People nod, a sheepish admittance that they've all been there. And then, did it ever happen that circumstances put you together and you ended up really liking each other a lot, maybe even becoming great friends? A few eyebrows go up and heads nod as they get the message. Stacking fire logs might not be your friend right now, but maybe if you relax your idea about it, that could change. I talk about this all the time when I'm teaching yoga. Since every body is different, it just makes sense that some people can naturally do certain poses while other ones seem completely impossible. You might be desperately struggling to lift your leg an inch off the floor while the perfectly ordinary person on the next yoga mat has somehow managed to toss a knee over his shoulder without any drama at all. I want to encourage people not to solidify what they think they know about themselves and any one pose, to instead rethink their relationship with the ones they've already labeled as enemies. Many of the students are regulars at my New York studio, Om Yoga Center. They've heard me talk about this before. Maybe the reason they're smiling at me is because they recognize that this is a lesson I'm trying to teach myself. Lola, Tia, Jules, and I gathered together around an earthy wooden table above the beach on the Nosara Peninsula of Costa Rica. We see one another for a week each year as part of the annual Omega Winter Retreat. As our men gathered across the terrace, we sat down together, letting the warm winter night air thaw our cold northeast bones. One of the best things about our friendship is that since we don't see one another very often, we don't do small talk. We talk about what we've been learning and practicing, what we've discovered or created, and what we've been able to let go of. As part of my quest for advice from other women, I asked them how they felt about their bodies. A silence opened up, and we sat together comfortably, feeling okay with the spaciousness. Lola is a big blonde who didn't seem to mind wearing a bikini when we went sailing last year, even though I knew from her husband that she was unhappy with her weight. Jules is a petite woman who got breast implants as a gift for her now ex-boyfriend. And Tia, the most voluptuous of us all, is a real dakini with long hair and a zoftig body, always in red or black or white, flowing skirts and lacy tunics. These were my 3 annual female friends, a store owner, a massage therapist, and an author. And then there's me, the yoga teacher who hates her body, never wants to be seen in a bathing suit, and always wears baggy yoga clothes. I still wear baggy yoga clothes. Lola answered my question by telling us a story about a woman who came into her shop in Rhinebeck. The woman tried on a dress and then stood right out in the middle of the store admiring herself in the mirror. She ran her hands up and down her body and purred, saying, "Wow, I look so good in this dress." And she really did look good. Everyone in the shop was looking at her and loving her attitude. I chimed in, "That's cool. I mean, it's practically illegal in our society to actually say right out loud that you think you look good." That's when Lola delivered the kicker. Yeah, and she was 70 years old. Oh, somehow that detail changed the whole story. I wondered out loud, do you think you would have had the same response to a 25 or 35 or 45-year-old woman who publicly admired herself? Lola thought about it for a moment and said, I would still think good for you. I dared to be totally honest by saying, well, it's not something I like to admit, but maybe at the same time I would be thinking, I don't like women like that, right? I don't know why we women compare ourselves to each other instead of just having our own confidence. Perhaps I was just ranting on about my own internal drama, but everyone knew what I was talking about. Then Lola offered up another story. She told us we should make a point of going to this little dress shop in Nosara. You have to meet this clothing designer. She's really good at helping you find things that look amazing on your body, usually things you wouldn't normally even think of trying on. Lola told us how the designer talked her into buying a beautiful dress, although it was sleeveless, backless, and very cleavagey, 3 things she never wears. To her surprise, she loved how the dress looked on her, and she took the leap and bought it. That night she went to a party, and there was another woman in a red version of the same dress. Lola didn't mind that there was another person in the same dress, but she didn't like the way the dress looked on that other woman. And then suddenly she was sure she also must not look good in that dress. Her confidence tanked as she realized she was at a party in a sleeveless, backless, low-cut dress that was all wrong for her. She caved in her chest, hugged her shawl around her shoulders, and decided she would never wear that dress again. Yep, got it. We all got that whole story. We knew exactly how Lola felt. Why is our confidence so fragile? I asked them, can you imagine what it would feel like to have the body confidence of the woman in Lola's shop? As a rebuttal to the confidence comment, Jules said, I think I look good for my age. Open-hearted Lola said she thought we all looked pretty good for our ages, and then in fact we were all exceptionally young looking. I agree, I said, wanting to show that I can be positive and supportive to my women friends. But what would it take for us to say we look good, period, without that for my age part? Jules squirmed a little bit. I asked them to visualize themselves being happy in their bodies. And what would that look like? What about you, Tia? I was so curious to hear what she would say. Tia has a completely adoring husband, and sometimes after dinner she puts on her ankle bells and entertains us with ultra-womanly Indian Kathak dancing. When she's not writing books and giving workshops, she designs her own lace tunics and she takes care of her ponies. She smiled. I guess I should probably think about my body more. I don't know. But when I visualize being happy, what comes to mind is lightness. What did she mean by that, to feel light? When I looked at Tia, she didn't look heavy or light. She's not thin, but I don't think that's what she meant. I've thought about this so many times since that night, and now I think I understand. I don't think Tia meant light as in poundage, but rather energetically light. Light in spirit, not bogged down by things that don't matter. And you know, that really is how I think of Tia. Instead of focusing on her body, like the serious meditator she is, she consciously places her attention on what is happening in the moment for her, dancing, creativity, family, and being helpful to others. I felt inspired by her comment and secretly thought, I'll have what she's having. But the part where she doesn't really think about her body, it reminded me of the Buddha and his early cohorts who said, let's deny the existence of our body because that is the source of our desire, and desire is a source of unhappiness. Is there a way to feel a lightness of being that acknowledges the body, that delights in the body, that does not limit that delight by applying it only to one size and shape of body? When I got back to New York City, I decided that in a similar way of doing a 30-day yoga challenge, I would do a 30-day positive visualization challenge. I would consciously visualize my body as I want it to be for 30 days and see if it worked. But then I got stuck because what do I want it to look like? I don't know. I do know that I want to break out of the dead-end materialistic approach to life that feeds cravings, such as wanting to be more thin and more perfect. Wasn't I going for lightness from the inside out? What does that look like? So, if I let go of my habitual picture of the perfect body as my goal, then what picture should I paint instead? I thought of a healthy body and I realized that I have that. I thought of a strong body and I have that too. I thought of a younger body and knew I didn't want to go there. It was good to discover that I might envy younger women in a certain way, but I don't have an urge to torture myself about being the age that I am. I have gray hair now, which I'm loving. So if I am strong, healthy, and okay with my age, then why am I not happy about my body? Like Tia, I want to feel and be light from the inside out. Does that mean I need to change my body or my mind or both? If the body is heavy, can the mind be light? If the mind is heavy, can the body be light? This 30-day positive body visualization challenge felt like a koan, one of those mysterious Zen questions that doesn't have a straight answer. Instead of wondering about the sound of one hand clapping, I pondered, what is the weight of one body of light? Or, if a body changes but no one notices, can it still become light? Maybe if the 30-day challenge to visualize what my body would look like if I felt light is like a Zen puzzle, then I should try solving it like a Zen practitioner. That meant meditating. So, I meditated. And I found out, I have to get a drink of water. I found out that that's a good step one. You can start to recognize your thoughts. You can recognize your negative self-talk. And with no attitude at all, just let it go and come right back to whatever's happening. But that isn't enough. I discovered that practice is really about purifying and then accumulating. Purifying negativity and accumulating positivity. And I found this out because I went to see Tenzin Palmo. Tenzin Palmo is a British nun whose original name was Diane. And when she was about 16, she had a voice in her head say, I want to be a Buddhist. She never heard of a Buddhist. She lived in the middle of nowhere in England where nobody's a Buddhist, and somehow she wanted to be Buddhist. And when she worked in the library and saved up her money and moved to India and became a Buddhist and studied with her guru and got very serious and couldn't get quiet enough to really do her practice. So eventually she went 12,000 feet up into a cave and lived in a cave on a solitary retreat. And there might be this book here called Cave in the Snow, and it's about her. And she lived in this cave and did yoga. And this part I think is funny. She sent away for a yoga book that she saw in the back of a magazine in India, and it was Bikram yoga. I just think that's funny because she was in a freezing cold cave, doing hot yoga. Anyway, so she was up there and she did yoga, and she was in there for almost 3 years. She slept sitting up, and one time she got snowed in and she had to dig herself out with her one tin cup. And so she's a very amazing, wonderful person. And right before the end of her 3-year retreat, the immigration man came and knocked on her cave. And she said, your visa is up. So she couldn't finish her 3-year retreat. And she, she's really rather enlightened. She was like, okay. So she left, and she began traveling around the world, and she gives teachings. And her books might be here too, Tenzin Palmo. And she came to New York, and I listened to her talk, and she was saying, let go, let go, let go. And I thought, I need to have a meeting with her. So I requested a meeting with her, and her assistant said, there's like 1% chance that you can get a meeting with her because she's really busy and she's only here for one day. And then he emailed me and said, you have a meeting with her tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So would you like to hear about that? Okay. This is where the tide got turned. In the meantime, I interviewed Jamie Lee Curtis, Christiane Northrup, and Louise Hay. Louise Hay just yelled at me in the best way and said, there's nothing wrong with you. Stop saying the H word. Okay, you might have to discuss amongst yourselves while I find this book. Oh, okay. Here we go. It was a 3H day, hot, humid, and hazy. A committed New York downtowner, I will go to Moscow or Hong Kong or Rome, but I never go above 14th Street unless absolutely necessary. This day, I gladly made the pilgrimage up to 49th Street to the apartment where Jetsuma was staying. That's her name, Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo. It turned out to be a fancy building, and my arrival was announced by the doorman while I waited for the elevator. I knew you didn't have to dress up for a meeting with a Buddhist nun, but I wanted to show my respect. So along with an armful of flowers, I was wearing a pretty flowered summer dress and gold sandals. When I stepped off the elevator, Jetsuma was waiting for me literally with open arms. Her assistant took the flowers so that Jetsuma could put her arms around me as if we were old, dear friends, and suddenly we were. Would you like some tea? I'm going to have some. As the assistant nun went into the kitchen to prepare our tea, Jetsuma took my hand and led me over to a love seat where we sat together. She sat sideways on the little sofa in Sukhasana, legs crossed beneath her, so she could face me. It took some negotiating with my slim summer dress, but I managed to do the same, and we sat facing each other. I was a little bit nervous, but not terribly, because Jetsuma was so friendly she put me at ease. Realized beings are always relaxed. Jetsuma was not out to get anything. She didn't have an agenda. Being around someone like that shifted the atmosphere, and there was no need for small talk. I told her of my suffering and mentioned feelings of betrayal and rejection in my marriage, and a lack of clarity about how to move on. I confessed that I wanted to let go, but kept getting snagged by my emotions, so much confusion and sadness and anger, too. Oh, my dear, she took my hands again. She might be a celibate nun, but she knew suffering when she saw it. I'm so hurt and lonely, and I can't seem to get through to the other side. I'm stuck. She said the most obvious and perfect thing. You have to take it into your practice. Turn it into the path. It was encouraging that she thought enough of me as a Dharma practitioner to say that. I knew she was right and said so. I know you know. That's why you're here. Her advice was gentle but clear. You have to go to your husband and tell him thank you. Thank you for giving me something to work with on my path. I took in a deep breath but didn't respond. I wondered if I could really do that. Wasn't that letting him win? My righteous anger toward him flared up, but Jetsuma wasn't done with the advice. And you have to forgive the women, too. You know, they are just lonely women. I bristled at that, and she saw it and said, oh, this is going to be tough for you. She rustled around a little bit, reorganized her robes so that she could lean forward and hold my hand again. You must practice Maitri for yourself, loving kindness. Start to do it every day. You do know how to do that practice. Yes. Well, normally you do it for others, but you must do this for yourself right now. Recite these phrases. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be happy. May I live with ease. I repeated them with her, and then she nodded. Yes, do this for yourself. This will really help you. Instantly, I knew she was right. This ancient Buddhist practice of cultivating feelings of loving kindness was something I'd practiced for many years. It was always popular among my students because it cuts through thinking and goes right to the heart. Whenever I taught it as part of my Yoga Body Buddha Mind workshops, I would make sure to have plenty of boxes of tissues on hand. Maitri uses the concentration that has been developed from basic mindfulness meditation to focus on positivity toward others. The scripture instructs the practitioner to cultivate specific thoughts of goodwill, compassion, and unconditional friendliness toward all living beings everywhere without exception. You learn to hold your attention on these thoughts with a soft heart, which the scripture calls a practice of mindfulness and sublime abiding. The instruction I had originally received was to say the 4 lines for 3 living beings: someone you love, someone you're having an issue with, and finally for someone who is a neutral person for you. It's easy to wish happiness, health, safety, and a life of ease for those you love, but it gets more challenging to do that for someone you don't like, and surprisingly, it's often most difficult for those you feel neutral toward. So the power of this practice is that it wakes us up to the fact that every single living being is like us. We all want to be happy and loved. It's really as simple as that. Once that sensitivity is aroused, we begin to experience our own heart breaking in a beautiful way. This open heart no longer allows us to ignore other people or wish them ill. when we see so clearly that we are all suffering in some way or another already. One of the concepts around cultivating anything good inside ourselves is that we're a bit like sponges. When we get squeezed or pressured, what we've practiced will come out. Just like making imprints in yoga class, these loving kindness imprints will show up when push comes to shove. Of course, this takes time, and that's why it's called a practice, but drip, 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 the bucket fills. And eventually, Maitri practice is said to create awakening in the heart of the meditator, and traditionally that is a prerequisite for attaining the state of a bodhisattva. I'd sent these 4 lines like prayers on the wind to my beloved, difficult, and neutral people many times. I definitely have a sense that practicing Maitri has created loving imprints within me, but it was not the same as coming right out and doing the practice for myself. How had I never thought of that before? A bodhisattva must work for her own liberation too. We talked about other things, her need to do more exercise now that she was over 60, and how wonderful it would be if I could visit her nunnery in India. Maybe I could give the nuns a yoga teacher training since they already had a daily yoga practice. But the conversation continued to circle back to me, and she stayed consistent in her advice. Take it onto your path. You know how to work with obstacle as a path, don't you, my dear? And don't forget to practice Maitri for yourself. A generous hour and a half later, we hugged goodbye, and when I hit the street, I didn't care that it was still a 3H day. I didn't care that it was 5:30 and I was in Midtown, where getting a taxi is a dog-eat-dog event. I started walking downtown, and my gold sandals chewed up my heat-swollen feet, just like they did when I was in Hong Kong. But I didn't care. It wouldn't last forever, and anyway, the need to find something outside myself as a landing pad for my hurt seemed to have lifted. Jetsuma's genuine, caring, and gentle, straightforward manner had been the soft knife that I needed right then to cut through confusion and open the door to clarity. She not only helped me untwist my mental Mobius strip, she gave me a new direction in which to go. Like coming out of a dark movie theater sometimes makes you notice the brightness of the world, I had a new perspective on my life and another way to live it. It was about letting go, of course. Letting go of my own habits that prevent me from feeling safe, happy, healthy, or at ease. It would take hard work to break the bones of those old ways of thinking, but I was ready to work with obstacles as my path. I was ready to pull the plug and let my emotional tsunami whirlpool down the drain. And I knew I could do it because Jetsuma had faith in me, and I had faith in her, and that equaled faith in myself. This inspiration rose up in me as I walked down 2nd Avenue, across 23rd, past my old apartment on 14th Street. As I took a right on 12th Street, heading back to my studio, I noticed that I was coated with city schmutz stuck to my humid skin. But just like the shower that was in my near future, I felt purified inside too. Finally, my body and my heart felt light. So you can see that there were some things that happened that you'll have to read the book to find out about, related to marriage and related to the big earthquake in Japan and some other unforeseen events. But the practice has stayed with me. So, anybody have any questions? Comments? Yes. Tell me your name.
Karen?
Karen.
Just a quick question, because I learned a long time ago that someone said something that really just stuck with me in terms of happiness and depression. How the opposite of depression isn't happiness, it's vitality. How would that apply in terms of your journey and the way you wrote your book?
Well, you know, happiness is, you know, such a hot topic. And I think everyone can define it for themselves every day in a different way. But I would say, I think of it as resiliency, which it has a relationship to vitality, I think. You know, I think you guys live in Miami. I'm guessing everybody here lives in Miami, and I'm visiting and loving it already after 2 hours. And, but, you know, the sun doesn't shine every day here, even. And we appreciate the rain because then it's, you know, we appreciate the sun. So it's resiliency, I think, that really at the core allows us to have a sense of a sense of open heart, you know, and that kind of happiness. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Yes.
I'm just, it's coming to me as I hear you talk, but I'm wondering how you dealt with your life in yoga, which is such a physical thing, and you're clearly so, deep and involved and in love with it, and that, conflicting with your body image. I mean, it seems like it would be not just a daily struggle, but an internal, every moment kind of a struggle.
Yeah.
In my understanding of yoga. Right?
Yeah. Well, what I didn't tell you, but it is in the book, is that even before I started yoga in 1971 when I went to college. But before that, I was a cheerleader. Before that, I was, climbing trees and skateboarding. And, so I was always a physical girl. And, busted all my toes twice and, dislocated. I won't show you my arms because the elbows are really weird. But, dislocated my elbows twice. I was always very active. And it wasn't until I became 12-ish, or I don't know what the age is, when you start to get feedback from the external world about your body. And I grew up with Twiggy. And can't blame it on Twiggy, because lots of people grew up with Twiggy and they don't have this thing. But a lot of people have this thing. And it's a whole idea about, it relates to perfection. It relates to, low self-esteem or lack of confidence, or the fact that you're trained from a certain age that even if you're the smartest girl in the class and the best cheerleader, or, successful in all of your endeavors, how you look is the first way that people judge you and the way that they describe you. And that and that really messes you up, because it doesn't even matter how you look. You could have what everyone else thinks is a perfect body and a perfect face, and you can't feel that, you can't see that. So I was also a professional dancer for 18 years. So I grew up in front of mirrors, which is maybe not the healthiest thing. And I think yoga for me is really fun and beautiful and deep. And I mean, it's my life. But I needed a different practice. I needed something that worked with the mind. Not just, in yoga we'll say, let go, come back to your breath, things like that. But that's the purification. But the accumulation that I talked about is what I found with Jetsuma. You accumulate positivity. So this practice can show up on the yoga mat then for me. And I just started taking it into the field. So if I felt unsafe in a situation, I could say, may I be safe? Just right then, may I be safe? May I be safe? If I felt, I'm doing a twist in yoga and going, oh, what's that? I just notice it and go, may I be happy? May I be healthy? Right in the field. So you learn to replace the negativity with the positivity. And that's how you accumulate and make a transformation. So it really, anything could be the vehicle for you feeling bad about yourself or good about yourself. But that was the practice that shifted it for me. Anybody else have a question? Yes.
How long were you in India, and then can you tell us about writing the book, when you started?
I was in India I went 2 times, and that trip was 3 weeks. And it was only in northern India, except for the very end when we went down to the Drepung Monastery, which is the Dalai Lama's monastery, but in India now. So we went, every place, almost every place that Buddha was. And I wasn't writing, I don't think I was writing this book then. I can't remember exactly. But I had started writing about letting my hair go gray, which seemed like such a big deal. And it's so funny to me now because I'm like, whatever. And people come up to me a lot, and I do get a lot of compliments on my gray hair, especially from men who say, don't even think about dyeing your hair. And then women say to me, I love your hair and I really want to dye, I really want to stop dyeing my hair, but I'm scared. And so if anybody's thinking that, it's not scary. So I was there for 3 weeks, and I think that after that, I had that sort of light bulb of like, oh, I do have a certain thing I do, a habitual pattern that's actually creating my own suffering. That's the first, you remember I said that's the first lesson? That's noble truth number 1. Noble truth number 2 is the cause of suffering, which is attachment, aversion, or ignorance. We want what we don't have, we don't want what we do have, or we space out on everything else. So that shows up for us in different ways, and for me it showed up in I want a different body. I don't want the body I have. But you can't have a life without the body you have. So it's a very beautiful awakening to realize, you can't do yoga with somebody else's body, and you can't meditate with someone else's mind. And so it flips into appreciation. But that happened later, after India. Then I went back to India, and I went up into Bhutan, and also on a Buddhist trip. I don't think I have to go to India again. Any other questions?
I wanted to comment on the gray hair, because I started letting my hair grow gray very early, and for me, I think I relate a lot to what you say, because I think that it's not about the hair, it's about something that you're holding for dear life.
Yes.
And as I practice also yoga, I see the same thing. Like sometimes you can do a headstand, but if the teacher is just holding you just this tiny bit, you can stand on your own, and you don't really need it.
Yeah.
But you need to feel that it's there so that you can do it, and then finally realizing that you just don't need it.
You don't need it.
And for some people it's the hair, for some people it's the makeup, for some people it's the something to look like you have a waist,
right,
and that nobody knows.
Right. Nobody knows. That's a big thing.
Nobody
knows.
Yes. That nobody knows that you have gray hair.
Yeah.
It's a big secret.
Yeah. But I just want to say for the record, I think it's perfectly fine if people want to dye their hair or whatever. It's what you're talking about is where the problem comes in, that sort of self denigration, or that it's almost like fear and shame, and it becomes a bigger thing. It becomes a poison, And I wrote about that at the beginning of the book, that I got my hair dyed and I got all ready to go to Hong Kong. And it was the first time I was teaching in Hong Kong at this huge conference, and it was a big deal to me, and I was just like, wanted to be perfect. And I looked in the mirror, and already there were some gray hairs here. And my whole mood tanked, and and I realized, wow, this is not cool, this is not healthy, and it's, if you dye your hair because it's fun for you, great. But if you dye your hair because you can't stand yourself, it's self-aggression, and that's the shift. And
it's like a shift. That's how I feel.
And when it shifts, it's really liberating, And my whole life has gotten so much better. I have a fabulous boyfriend, and lots of things have opened up, and it's really awesome. And I realize sometimes if I see a picture of myself now, and when I was dyeing my hair, I think, oh, I look older. And it's like, so what? I am older, and I'm glad to be here. So what? So I think so what is, I offer that as a practice as well. When you start to wish that something was different, just go, so what? If you're unhealthy, then you can relate to that. But if it's this kind of shame, fear-based stuff, like, so what? So what if you have a big butt? So what? I was thinking of that as a title too, and that was also rejected. Don't you think that would be good? Like, so what if I have gray hair, or if I have a big butt, or anyway, that can go for that.
as being the formula for happiness. I mean, and we know that it's bankrupt, but still, it's all about appearances, and it's
It doesn't even have to be appearances. It could be a variety of things. Fill in the blank. There's a really great book that I read recently called How to Be a Woman by Caitlin Moran. Has anyone read that? I don't like the title because it doesn't really give you an idea of what it's about. But I think she's like the British Tina Fey. It's very funny, but it's very soulful. And she talks about this, and she calls it the princess syndrome. She saw it in her little girls already, that they can only be happy if they think they're a princess. If they can put on their princess dress. And now we're grown up and we're still waiting to get in our princess dress, whatever that is. If that's a job or a man or
we're waiting for our prince.
We're waiting to be a perfect princess, whatever that means for us, And instead, what we do is we miss all the things about us that are really awesome, and that's a syndrome, and it's not just in the West, because everybody's watching American television. In Africa, what I understand is it used to be a perfectly normal way to greet someone would say hello, you're looking fat today, or hello, you're looking thin today, and the person would say thank you, and that wasn't a judgment. It was just like, you're looking nice and plump, or you're whatever, and that's over. They know that now that doesn't work anymore. Yes.
My second question is your desire to write. So you were teaching,
Yes.
right? Teaching yoga.
Right.
And then you decided to write because you've written other books besides this.
Yes.
And how did you embark on that path?
Well, originally I really thought it was going to be kind of a nonfiction book, like a teaching book, more of a teaching book. Like, this is a problem that I identified when I finally recognized it was so familiar, and then I recognized it on this trip, and this is how it comes into Buddhism. And here are some other people that I talked to, and here's how you can make some practices. But then, basically, all hell broke loose in my personal life, and it changed, and it became more of a memoir. And the teachings are embedded in there. And now I do teach workshops about this, including on Sunday at Prana Yoga. And other workshops I've started teaching just for women called ZG, which is the Tibetan word for confidence, but the actual translation is radiance and splendor and glitter.
Radiance, splendor, and what?
Glitter or sparkle. Yeah. Yeah, but so it changed a little bit, changed into a memoir.
I guess what you're talking about has to do with self-acceptance. May I be happy, may I be. And I noticed in the recent yoga journal, there was, I can't remember the gal who does all the toe socks commercials.
Yeah, Catherine Beauty.
She was saying whether you're 5 pounds heavier or 10 pounds heavier or 10 pounds lighter, it's how you feel. And you said you're strong,
Yeah, and I saw a T-shirt that said "Strong is the new skinny." But Yoga Journal also had an article in their last issue saying if you have a body like an apple, these are the good yoga clothes for you. You know that thing? Or if you have a body like a pear, then you should wear these kinds of clothes in yoga. And they got a lot of flack for that. Yeah. Yeah. So it's, just the place where we should feel safe and healthy and happy and at ease. Yeah. Changing.
I thought it was kind of a brave issue this month, having just different, not the typical skinny model on the cover, and articles about people of different sizes teaching. I just thought, that's cool.
That's good. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
It's like
I haven't read the whole magazine, but I'm just kind of.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, I was advocating for that for a long time, so finally they did that.
Full splendor.
Catherine Budick. But Catherine Budick is a teeny tiny person and a wonderful teacher and darling.
If I could just say on the gray hair issue, I have gray hair. I color it. And, I have fun with it. I do it myself. And I went to the guy who cuts my hair. What do you think about me growing my hair out? He said, well, if you want to look 20 years older.
Yeah,
That was his, if you want to look 20 years older.
Well, I wrote almost the same thing in here. I did the same thing. Of course they're going to say that.
I mean, he doesn't do my hair. I do it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't think I look 20 years older than when I dyed my hair. I think I look different. I might look older. I'm not sure. But when I look at pictures, it looks weird to me on me now. It's totally personal.
But there's this either fear of looking older or, it's not like we're a culture that embraces old age. And
yeah, but you know what? I just felt like I had to. I'm not trying to change the planet, really. Although there is an imperative in the Zen Buddhist teachings that you should tell your story. That it's actually helpful for other people to tell when you tell your story and But I don't know. I think it just depends. Your hair is not going to make you act older. It's not going to make you feel older. I mean, you can still have a cute haircut. You know what I'm saying? And you can still wear cute clothes. And I don't know. I got a younger boyfriend. And he has white hair, so, and he has white hair, and everyone thinks he's very handsome and dignified, so.
Well, that's nice. That's how it goes.
Yeah. But I had gray hair when he met me. And that was the first thing he noticed, and he thought it was beautiful. So, I just think everybody gets painted, with a broad paintbrush.
Right.
And really, life is short. You should do what makes you happy, healthy, safe, and at ease. And that might change all the time, and that's okay too.
It may not be a Buddhist philosophy about saying, may I be strong, may I be at peace or happy, but I've seen, I think it was Dr.
Wayne Dyer.
Who said it's similar, but it's whether you are or you're not, you say, I am, it's positive affirmations, I am beautiful, I am strong, I am well, even if you're not. And how do you feel, I know they're all words, it's semantics, but is there any difference in it?
I think that you can, I think it's all the same thing. I mean, that's why I went to see Louise Hay. She's sort of the queen of affirmations. And the first thing she said to me was, don't use the H word ever again. She's actually said, we're not going to say that now, are we? And she said, when you find yourself wanting to say that, you say something else. And she said it takes a while. So you might feel silly at first, but then you can, see, for me, I wanted to recognize, I didn't want to just sort of layer something on like a Band-Aid. I wanted, the process I went through was I'm recognizing this negative voice, like a little leprechaun on my shoulder. I don't know if leprechauns are good or bad. It was not a gremlin, anyway, going, ah, that kind of thing. And when I heard that, I would then just like let that person go away and say, may I be happy. And so there was a relationship of, like I said, the purification and accumulation. And I think I think that's an important key. If you just say everything positive without dealing with the negative patterning, I don't know if it will work as well.
So maybe the difference is the may is asking, and the other is state of being. And I wonder, I'm sorry, I wonder if that's a woman saying, May I?
Maybe.
Because that is a little more polite.
Yeah, but that is a traditional way of that men and women say it in Buddhism. I don't know. I mean, I think you can play with it, and really see what works for you. Yeah, and there's another image which is you can't wash the floor with a dirty mop. So you have to get rid of the negativity before you can, you've got to clean the floor. You've got to clean the mop, before you can clean the floor. So you get it. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
I was in New York this summer and I started working on a little bit with the loving kindness meditation, the breathing, and the compassion. And when I started with the loving kindness first, it just makes it like so blissful. Like I never thought about it, but we were just like working with it, and ever since I came back and I've been working with this type of meditation, it made the breathing meditation a lot easier as well.
Yeah.
But I'm just happier, and just like it makes it just really, really joyful.
That's good.
Yeah.
All the practices are basically meant to be processes of familiarization, and being happy or being joyful is said to be the ground of our existence, joy and contentment. But we don't recognize that because we get all busy and create pressure or create our own suffering in different ways, and we get familiar with that. So this practice is a way, and what you're talking about too, saying I'm strong, is a way of getting familiar with that feeling. That's already there. It's not alien. It's natural. It's inherent in who you are. And when you get familiar with it, it's easier to access it, and it becomes who you are. Look at her. You can tell she's happy. Peaceful. Yeah. Yes.
They say comparison is a thief of joy.
Yeah.
So do you think that in order for a woman to gain enlightenment and be able to let go, she would have to release social media? Because everybody's comparing and putting such a beautiful life out there of perfection. And it's hard.
No, I don't, because I don't think that that's what creates our tendency to compare. I think that that's within us. And that was another reason I wrote about this in the book, that I was really being crabby to my husband. And he said, "Why are you so crabby?" And what happened was I complained. This was when I was in Hong Kong, and I was like, he said, "Why are you so crabby?" And I said, "Oh, I have jet lag, and I've got gray hair, and I feel bloated, and And he said, "Oh, that's why you're being so crabby to me. You're being crabby to yourself." And that was really when I started to think about this and dig deeper. This was before I went to India, actually. Now I'm sort of remembering the sequence. And I realized that if I want to be kind, which I do, and I want to care about other people, which I do, and I want to be a helpful person because I'm a yoga teacher, and I made that commitment, that I have to start with myself. Does anybody do TRX? It's this arm thing. Yeah, I do TRX. And they say you have to earn your progression. And it's the same thing. You can't be compassionate and loving and generous to other people and treat yourself like a schmuck. So I realized that was the seed, and that was the starting point. And when you start to feel good about yourself, you don't compare yourself to people anymore, because it's not interesting. You feel much more generous. It's like, you feel good and you want everybody to feel good. So I don't think you can blame it on social media, although it gets kind of boring. Yes?
Okay, and I'm sorry to bring it around to the hair again. Apparently this is how we women feel because we're talking about the gray hair a lot. I don't have gray hair yet, but I always found it so beautiful when people just have like a full head of just gray or white hair. And my grandma one day, I remember I saw her and I was like, "Oh my God, Abuela, your hair looks beautiful." She's like, "Oh, I haven't dyed it." I'm like, "Don't dye it. It looks beautiful." How did you let it grow out?
Okay.
I know you. That
I'll tell you
the growing out part is the.
This is I'll give you.
I have another question after, which has nothing to do with hair, I promise.
Okay. Well, I first let it grow out about 10 years earlier from the final grow out, and it didn't look that good. And my girlfriend, Mary Perillo, who I dedicated the book to, took me out to dinner and she said, that was a cute experiment. I get it. It was great. Dye your hair. It's not you're not ready. And stop wearing pants with elastic waistbands. So I dyed my hair again for about 5 years. And then I really felt like there was a lot. It just was great. And I was sick of it. And I thought I'd try it again. And so I went to India. It was about this much, and then I cut it. And it was way more traumatic for me to have short hair than gray hair, and I don't recommend it. If I was going to do it again, I would just let it grow, or maybe cut it here and just let it grow. And so what? If you have a stripe and people say, your hair looks weird, you go, yeah, I'm growing it, so what? But that was what I thought. You got to cut it off.
And then the second question, meditation, I think, but every time I try, I feel like I think too much. What's, I guess, a beginner for meditation, what do you recommend?
It's not about getting rid of your thoughts. It's about changing your relationship to the thoughts you have. So you sit, place your attention on your breath, and when you realize you're thinking, that's no problem. It's going to happen. But that's not what you're doing right now. So you let go of it and come back to the breath. And it will happen again and again. And that's really fine. That's the process. It's not about holding an idealized state of mind, of empty head. Because there's no benefit to having an empty head. But you will learn to be the boss of your thoughts a little bit more that way. It's part of it. If you're not thinking, you can't meditate. Because it's about working with your thoughts, not about getting rid of them. It's like doing yoga. You can't do yoga without your body, right? You can't meditate without your thoughts, without your mind. Yeah. Yes.
Do you still teach yoga?
Yeah, I'm teaching yoga all weekend at Prana Yoga. Tomorrow night, Body Mandala, 6 to 8:30, etc. All weekend I'm teaching. Yeah, and on Sunday I'm teaching a class called May I Be Happy.
I took a TM meditation course for a while, and I find it very hard. Like I never followed it through because I find it's usually 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the afternoon. I always sit there, and that's exactly what the teacher said. You got to just accept your thoughts. Right. But I find myself thinking of Publix and thinking, okay, I have so many things to do, and here I am wasting time doing this, and that's how I feel.
Yeah,
and then I feel totally guilty that I took this course and I'm not following it. How did you go through that?
I'm going to give you a new way to try it if you want. Anybody can try this. 10 minutes once a day. That's it. For 2 weeks. Only for 2 weeks. At the end of 2 weeks, you're going to quit. So for 2 weeks, and if you have it, whatever time you get up, you just get up 10 minutes earlier. That's not that hard, right? Even if you get up at 6 o'clock, so what? It's 10 minutes. So what? If you don't have to get up at a certain time, then whenever you get up, you just put water on your face, swish water through your mouth, and sit down for 10 minutes. Just sit there. Place your attention on your breath. When your mind strays, that's fine, and you come back. If you think, I don't know why I'm doing this, this is stupid, and then you recognize that. In the moment that you recognize you're thinking, you've already come out of the thought. The thought has ended and you've awakened. And you come back to your breath. And so you're getting familiar with how these natural gaps in thinking arise, because they do all the time. It's another thing that's natural, just like joy is natural. And you just do that for 10 minutes, for 2 weeks, and then see what you think. No, but if you don't like it, then never have to do it again. But if you really want to start a meditation practice, after 2 weeks, you might, in the next couple of days, you might miss it. And then you feel motivated. So it's better to quit when you're still hungry, like when you eat. So just do 10 minutes. You don't have to use the mantra. Just your breath. That's it. That's all you need.
But you find that it's normal that you feel that this is a waste of time?
No, that's.
I mean, I need
what's
it.
Normal?
I feel like
what's
I need
normal?
It.
What's normal is that you're thinking things, and that's what you happen to be thinking. And after 2 weeks, you might not think. You might be thinking something else.
I guess I expect meditation to be something that it's.
You want it to be a magic pill, and it's tricky because you see people meditating and they just look like this. And you go, well, I should be able to do that. But they're thinking too. If you go to yoga and you see people standing on their head, you wouldn't think, well, I should be able to do that immediately, right? You know that's a process. Well, meditation is also a process. It's just so internal that you can't see other people's process. But if you live with somebody who started to meditate, you'll see how they change. And if that person is you, you'll see how you change. And you start to take a gap. It's creating a gap between stimuli and response. And the stimuli is your thought. And then you don't have to respond. Like if you think, oh, this is a waste of time, then, oh, I shouldn't be thinking that. Oh, I'm thinking too much. Maybe I should. It's all reactionary. And that's also okay. When you recognize that, you just let go and come back to your breath. Try it for 2 weeks. Yes?
Yeah, it's funny that you guys were talking about that. I was telling my wife I just finished reading the Dalai Lama on the spiritual journey. And I got inspired and I started pretty much meditating this morning for about 5 minutes. But I was so many thoughts that were going through my mind that by the end I'm like, I don't know if I just prayed. So I did a cross.
Just in case. Yeah, just to cover your bases. Yeah. It's okay to think. Thinking is, again, it's like you wouldn't think you could do yoga without your body. But you're creating a different relationship with your body. Meditation is creating a different relationship with your thoughts. So when you realize you're thinking, you've already stopped thinking that thought. You know, they say in Tibetan Buddhism that your mind is like a bird on a ship in the middle of the ocean. And the bird will take off and go flying, but eventually it comes back because there's no place else for it to land. So, just sitting quietly for 10 minutes like that. And I think, it's okay to do the cross afterwards because it is like a prayer. It's goodness. It's all goodness.
I didn't know whether I meditated or prayed something.
It's all goodness. Yes. Yes.
I guess we're on the meditation thing. I also have a really hard time meditating, but I'm a drummer. I play Middle Eastern drums and frame drums. So I do that because it gives my mind and my hands something to do. But then after 10 minutes, I'm not sure, did I really meditate or did I miss because it's not fit, because you're doing the same thing repetitively. Is it still that benefit or have I just busied myself doing something and it's not the same benefit? Because I am
when you're playing your drums.
When I'm playing the drum, the same thing.
I think you can get a meditative, experience from that, but it's not the same as meditation. You really have to do like formal meditation, just to get the full benefits. I think it's like if you think about what are the benefits from doing, working out at the gym or jogging or doing yoga, what are those benefits? Well, you won't get those benefits if you don't get on your yoga mat and do the yoga. So meditating will bring benefits. The benefits of meditation are not said to be peace or bliss. They're said to be strength, stability, and clarity. Strength, stability, and clarity. So, that I think is a little bit different than.
It's a little cheating. I just feel like
I don't think it's cheating. I think it's a different thing, and it's a good thing, but it's a different thing. Yeah, it's a different thing. Yeah. See how we do? We criticize ourselves, right? You're not cheating. You're creative.
The times that I've tried it, when you try so hard not to think, that you start thinking way too much at once, and then you're like, oh, okay, now I'm on overload.
Yeah, don't try not to think. Yeah, almost everyone thinks that, but then that's not it. Did you have a question?
I guess a comment. I do meditation. I've been working with it. I guess like you said, the gym, it's the same thing. To where the more you do it, the more you see results. If you do something for 3 weeks, maybe you might feel little results, but it's not the same as doing it for 3 months. So just stick with it, you guys.
Have talk. Yeah, thank you.
But I wanted to just ask more information about your workshops this week. If there's a flyer or anywhere I can look up information on your workshops this weekend.
Donna?
I'll grab some.
Okay.
Can you just say out loud what the times are and where it is?
Yes, it's Prana Yoga. We're 247 Malaga, which is, unless you're Cuban, you can say Malaga. Malaga. We're just about 8 blocks down south on Ponce. And tomorrow night from 6 to 8:30. Saturday from 10:30 to 1, and then 2:30 to 5, I think. And then Saturday morning from 10:30 to 1. And if you check our website, or we have some flyers here at the bookstore, you can look at each individual workshop.
You can
And our
take
website, excuse me,
one.
Cindy, is pranayogammiami.com.
All right. Well, then, thank you very much, Cyndi.
Thank you.
All right. All right, folks, so if there are no more questions, then a reminder to our internet audience at home, you could still call the number on your screen, purchase a copy of the book, and we will get it signed and shipped to you in the U.S. free of charge. For those of you here in the house, we have May I Be Happy, as well as some of Cyndi's previous books for sale at the counter over there. She's going to be signing here at the table to the left of the podium. And please, let's give Cyndi one more hand. Thanks very much. All right.